Welcome to the Strap and Link podcast, where we cover brands from their inception to their latest release.
It's the Montress Tudor.
Like I said, better movement, spring drive
So,
potentially, Rolex Oyster Perpetual.
There's Super Ocean here. Now you see this kind of renaissance of Tudor. Finally, in 2016, they achieved the spring drive with an 8-day power. The podcast for watch lovers by watch lovers. New episodes every first and third Monday of the month.
Welcome back to the Strap and Link podcast, everybody. This is your host, Brett, and here again with my co-host, David.
What's going on, guys?
Hello. If this is your first time listening, we certainly want to welcome you to our show. Also want to inform you that this is part 2 of 2 for our Rolex brand discussion and review. Episode 1 of Rolex has already been released earlier this month. So if you want to hear about the history, the founding, all the horological achievements from Rolex, go check out part 1 first. We also covered in that episode the Rolex Submariner and the Rolex DateJust. So again, go check that out, part 1. This is part 2. So today we're just going to jump pretty much right into the current collection. We're going to talk about a couple of watches. So that's kind of the rundown. David, anything you want to add onto that?
No, it's a great episode last, 2 weeks ago now. And, I think, everybody thought the discussion was great. So I'm really excited to see what you have to say. I know last week was kind of more, my cup of tea with the Submariner and DateJust and stuff. So I know you have some passionate views on the watches you're talking about this week. So it's kind of your turn to shine.
Yeah, man. Yeah, I'm definitely looking forward to it. Rolex has got so many really, really cool watches. And I think it's interesting to talk about because Rolex is one of the brands that you can't just like walk into a store and pick them up, right? And they're also pricey. So it's a fun brand because, unlike like a Tissot, right? You can talk about those and it's like, oh, the PRX releases. Well, you can go and try that on and you can walk out, with one of those. But Rolex, it's like, oh, I love the GMT Master and the rose gold, but I'm never gonna have that.
Yeah, and it's funny because like you were saying there, you could go try on so many other watches, and these, unless they have it in an exhibition model, you're never gonna really know how you like it until you have it half the time. We always talk about how you can love a watch the way it looks, but then hate it on you. And so I feel like there's probably a little bit more of that happens in Rolex if you're just trying to. You think you love it online and then you just get it without ever seeing it. And I'm sure there's a little bit of letdown there sometimes. But again, I know a lot of people, they'll just buy any Rolex they can just because the value retention on it. They're, hey, I don't care if it's new and I'm being offered it. I'm getting it. I don't care if I hate it. It's my least favorite model. It's still a Rolex, so I'm getting it anyways.
Yeah, that's a good point. Our mailbag question is a little bit geared around that sort of idea and topic. So I'm excited to get into that later also. Well, before we jump into the current collection, a couple of updates from us over here at Strap and Link. So this episode, David and I just spent about 45 minutes trying to resolve a video issue. So we won't have any video for this episode. So don't be alarmed if you're one of the few people that have subscribed to our new YouTube channel. Won't be anything up this week, and then on Instagram. So no big deal, but just wanted to disclaim that. And we are like 45 minutes into tech support today. So
we love the Windows updates. Let's just leave
yeah.
it at that. And we'll be buying external cameras in the coming weeks for next time.
I need to send you the one that I got. It's I think I paid like 60 or maybe $80 for it. And super, super good quality for the price. There's of course nicer ones, but
yeah. Is it a clip on to like your laptop camera?
Yeah.
Okay. That's what I was thinking I'll probably do. Cause I know your setup is very like, very techie, like the job you have. I'm a little more old school, just to set up on my desk, so I need something to clip onto my laptop or it's just gonna sit below my laptop and that wouldn't look right. So
yeah,
of course it sucks too that this happened, of course, this week right after I got my brand new vintage.
I know, I was waiting
posters
for it.
on the wall behind me for everybody to see, but we'll just drag that out a little bit longer and you'll see it in September.
Yeah. Awesome.
Yeah. Anyways, all right. Well, let's get the show on the road.
Yeah. Let's get into it. We're a couple minutes in, 10 minutes in or so. So, yeah, let's get rolling. I think you are starting off today. Is that right?
Yeah, so the next watch I want to talk about, kind of starting things off today, is actually the Day-Date. I think it's a good jumping point from the DateJust where we ended
Yeah.
last week's episode. Just a more elegant and definitely sought after watch than the DateJust. DateJust I feel like is the perfect quintessential, dress watch for that price point, and then you're really jumping up here, and this is kind of most people's grail watches when they think of a Rolex. Um, you're looking here at a vast array of different case materials. You're talking platinum, gold, stainless, I believe some, but mostly platinum and
Yeah.
gold. 40 millimeters is the new ones, is the Day-Date 40, as they call it on the Rolex app or website. And then water resistance, you're at 100 meters, which I think standard or even really good for a dress watch. 100
Yeah.
meters. You're talking the caliber movement for Rolex is their 3255, which is their self-winding movement. Day-Date function is the same thing as their DateJust, just with the Day-Date function in it. As all Rolexes, mostly are that we've talked about, you're at 70 hours of a power reserve, and you're at a very vast array of pricing. I know we always talk about
Yeah.
pricing on this, but I mean, you're really starting in the upper 30s, and then you're jumping, I mean, all over 80 plus. And that's talking, from Rolex themselves. If you were one
Yeah.
of the very, very lucky people to get one from Rolex, but if you're
Hey,
talking
quick
aftermarket, go ahead.
quick clarification. So I just went to the website. No stainless. There's
Okay.
yellow, white, rose, gold, and platinum.
Okay, yeah.
Yep.
When I said
So
stainless, I kind of thought maybe not, especially if you're at that 38,000 mark,
yeah.
you're not going to hit stainless.
Well,
Yeah.
I thought stainless too, and yeah, when you said starting at 38, I was like, oh, I
There must
doubt
be.
there's stainless. Yeah, I was like, there's got
Yeah.
to be a bunch of diamonds on that with stainless. But yeah, so it
Yeah.
looks like gold and platinum. Yeah.
Yeah, and Rose.
Yep.
And that's really talking straight from Rolex. If you're talking aftermarket, you're going to be all over. I mean, starting, and I'm talking an older watch, 40, but most of their newer watches, you're going to be all over probably 50, 60 starting, and then upwards of 100K plus for their platinum dials and platinum case material and everything. But it really just depends on the year. Last year I know these values were much, much higher, and they're starting to kind of slowly go down, and who knows where it'll be in a year or two. But
Yeah.
it's kind of like anything, especially with Rolexes, there's just such a high variation of value in them, just depending on the year you're in. But
Yeah.
going from dials, you've got of course, your basic, very black, silver. They actually have their green dials, olive dials, which are very, very popular. Not really my cup of tea, but I know a lot of people that want their olive dial day dates.
Yeah.
And you also have your ice blue, which goes with their platinum very nicely, kind of matches all the way around. Obviously, the chocolate dial that we've talked about a lot, and probably the most popular in media today, what I see the most of out, whether whoever it is their champagne dial, which just
Mm,
is a solid gold look all the way
yeah.
around. But I mean, they have a bunch of really cool, and these are when I'm talking 100 plus $1,000 watches. When you add their Ezekiel dials or the Opaline dials, things like that, that's gonna, if
What is
you
the
don't know what those
Ezekiel
are,
dial?
that's their, like, the marble look. When
Oh,
you see the
okay.
date just, or I keep saying date just, the date with the marble look on the dial,
Okay.
black with all the different features. I know some of those are Ezekiel. I think there's another name in there I can't think of off the top of my head, but all of those very swanky dials that I've never seen one in the wild, and I'm sure most 99% of
No.
people have not. but
No.
but you see those online and on social media and stuff, and those are very, very exclusive. And I'm sure they make 10 of those a year. I'm not sure, but they're much, much
Right.
more exclusive than just your normal black chocolate champagne that you get. But again, platinum is, the way of the game in today's world, where it comes to just what I know a lot of people around me want is that platinum, but it really just comes to what you want.
Is
Um,
is
Go
platinum
ahead.
more expensive than gold? Because like I just was configuring one with yellow gold and then a diamond set bezel, and the price is on request. Do you know if is platinum more expensive?
I mean, it is for for like diamond rings if you're going white gold versus platinum. So I would imagine,
Okay.
yes. I've never actually
Okay.
got a price from Rolex on their
Uh,
platinum, but I know aftermarket they're much more, sought after and
yeah.
expensive. So I would imagine so, yeah.
Okay. Yeah, because I just
But
did
I know
platinum
because
and
if you're looking at rings, you can do white, gold, or platinum, and
yeah.
platinum's always going to be a little bit more money. So I would imagine it's the same with a watch.
Okay, got it. Yeah, I did a platinum config with a fluted bezel, no
Mm-hmm.
diamonds, and then that's also price on request. So
Yeah.
it's
Yeah, I
it's
don't
problems that you and I will probably never solve.
never have. Yeah, we can go ask and they'll laugh at us. So
Yeah,
they might entertain us and let us know the price. But
yeah.
yeah, but no, these watches really caught popularity in the mid 1900s. They were worn by many U.S. presidents at the time. LBJ I think really started it, and then Clinton, Reagan, even more modern presidents, Bush too. I think Trump. Of course, Trump wore the gold. They all these presidents have worn these watches and been seen out in public, and that's really why the president, day-date president, that's where it came from. So but then in more today's world, which is more popular and more seen, is your media figures. Pat McAfee, Joe Rogan,
Mm.
all these Tom Cruise, Brad Pitt, all these guys are always wearing a variation of this watch on whatever their stand-up, their TV shows, their interviews, and that's really where most people I think see him today
Joe
versus
Rogan
just the
has one.
president. Yep.
Huh.
Yep.
Is
Yeah,
he?
he
Does
has.
he finally get into watches? Because I've seen so many clips of him where he's like I don't get watches. Like I don't get people
Oh
that
yeah,
like watches.
he's big into them now. I know he's a big
Okay.
Omega guy. There's a famous video of him giving away one of his Omega Speedmasters to Lex Friedman.
I've heard that
And
story. Yeah.
yeah,
Okay.
but he's a big Omega guy, but he's also been seen, especially at a lot of the UFC fights, wearing the President Day-Date.
Okay. Very
Yeah.
cool. Did not
But yeah,
did not know
all
that.
the big guys. I know Pat McAfee, once he signed his big deal with FanDuel back in the day, he's always seen wearing
Oh
one now,
yeah.
champagne. Burt Kreischer, same thing, comedian. He's always seen wearing his Daytona or his Day-Date. So he's a big Rolex guy now. Tom Segura, same way. So all these big name figures that are very popular in today's world are out seeing this watch or at Daytona. It seems
Yeah.
like.
Yeah.
But this is still, and I think that really comes from them definitely growing up, and I know me as well. The Day-Date has always been just a Grail watch. I know this is my Grail watch. This is what I want. I know a lot of
Yeah.
people love the solid gold sub, and there are other ones that that's their most sought after watch. But I think there's nothing classier than this dressy Day-Date president. Yellow gold. I love the black dial with the diamond studs on it.
Yeah.
But it's very cool watch, very sought after. I think the champagne obviously is very popular today. As I just said, all those guys I just mentioned have the champagne dial.
Mm-hmm.
To me, I don't. What do you think about it? I think I'd rather have the black dial than the champagne. I
Oh,
get the
black
all
all
gold
day.
look, but
Yeah.
it's very surprising to me that Pat McAfee, all these guys are always seen wearing the champagne dial. And
Yeah.
go ahead.
Oh, I was just gonna say for me, yeah, if you go solid gold, I love the look of solid gold, but with black dial specifically, like it's
Mm-hmm.
that's the pop. So yeah, I would 100% go black. Like if I had the money, it would probably I would have diamonds on this thing too.
Yeah.
At least on the dial, the black
Yeah.
like sunburst with the diamond markers or just like the
Yeah.
diamond baguette,
And I
instead of the
believe
fluted
that's
bezel.
actually, I believe that's actually the only way. I was talking to an AD. Again, you can, check me on this, but I believe they said the black dial, that's the only way they come now is with the diamond baguettes, because I was looking originally for a loom.
I just found one, yeah. So they've got both, at least
They
on the
do.
website right now. Yeah, I
Okay.
just looked at it. Yep.
Okay. Yeah, and I've only seen the baguettes in person, and I love a loom, and we always talk about that. It's always the the problem, I guess, with
Yeah,
the Grand Seiko's no loom. And so I always wondered how I'd like the baguettes, but you're never going to turn away a diamond.
loom is
if
one of those. It's like it's a nice to have until you don't have it, and then it's a
hmm
requirement. That's
Yeah.
kind of to me. That's kind of how loom works. Same with like date window. It's nice to
Yeah.
have, but then I put on a Black Bay 58 on, and now it's like I don't like the watch because it doesn't have a date window.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Exactly. But
but
yeah,
but
I mean, what do you think about this watch? I mean, what is
yeah,
your opinion been, and where are you at?
I think it's like if I had to just distill it down as far as I could, it's a more refined and it's a better iteration of the DateJust basically, because that's really what it is, right? It's
Mm-hmm.
the DateJust with a day of the week complication at the at the 12 o'clock position, and it has a fancier bracelet, right? Of course,
Yeah.
it's gold over silver, but that notwithstanding, that's really the only difference, right? It's got a more sought after, cooler bracelet, whatever. It's cooler because, more people have the Jubilee than the President bracelet.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah,
Mm-hmm.
to me, like boiled down, distilled, I think that it's a better, again, more refined version of the DateJust. Because of that, it would probably be my Rolex Grail watch too. Like I've got other
Mm-hmm.
sweethearts that I'll talk about, like the Sky-Dweller and the GMT both, but those are both, very clear and obvious tool watches, and they're beefy, and the Sky-Dweller specifically is such a chunky, thick watch. Whereas the Day-Date, just like the DateJust, and you and I have talked about the DateJust being more of a dressy watch than a sporty one. The same
Mm-hmm.
thing I think goes here. I think this one is more dressy than it is sporty as compared to like the DateJust, but compared to any of the other ones, like a solid gold Sky-Dweller or Rolex, for example, like no, I would much rather have this watch.
Yeah.
It's much cooler, and I just think sleek, and it would just go with, I mean, like you talked about Pat McAfee and Joe and some of the other guys, like on the McAfee on his show, he's wearing like a black tank top most days with this thing.
Yeah. Oh,
You
yeah.
can go that like dress down with it,
Yeah.
or be the president of the United States and rock it every day of the
Yeah.
week, So yeah, it's so versatile, so
Mm-hmm.
refined. Yeah.
Yeah.
And the weight of it, like you've mentioned that before, it might have been on part one episode, if not part one on a different one, but you've mentioned like the weight of them. I've only put one on,
Yeah.
in a store, and yeah, they're so substantial, man. When they get on the
Mm-hmm.
wrist, you do not forget that you're wearing one,
Yeah.
that you're
Oh,
wearing a solid
definitely.
gold watch. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. And I think, I was just looking through them all while you were talking there. I think another reason I'm not a huge fan of the champagne is, does it to you give off a little more like old school vibe? I feel like the champagne is
Yeah.
more 1980s, 90s vibe versus the black dial with the yellow gold. It's very 20,
It's like an older
2000s.
person's vibe.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
It reminds me of like, think like, remember when
It
champagne
reminds me of
cars?
LBJ. It reminds me of an old
Oh, well,
president. Yeah, there you
yeah.
go.
Well, I think of like old cars. Like my
Yeah.
grandparents had a Buick. They had this old Buick LeSabre, little four
Mhm.
door sedan, and it was champagne. But just cars in general, like in the 80s, 90s, early 2000s, that was a super popular color. It was like that
Mhm.
champagne gold. You saw it
Oh,
on like
yeah.
Tahoes and Suburbans and pickup trucks and everything.
Yeah.
So to me, the champagne dial just reminds me of like the 90s.
Yeah.
Like more than
Definitely.
anything else. Yeah,
Definitely. Yeah,
yeah,
it's funny. It just throws you back to a different time, but, a lot of
yeah.
people, that's their vibe and that's what they like,
There's
so,
a place for it, like in a collection. Like I'll
Oh,
always
yeah.
say there's a place for probably any watch, but it's how much money do you have and how many watches are you going to have in a
Mhm.
collection. If I get one of these watches, no way in hell that there's a champagne dial is getting on it. If I owned 20 Rolexes, yeah, why the hell not? Throw a champagne
Yeah.
dial in there.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Exactly.
yeah, cool, man. You ready to move on
Yeah.
to the Sky-Dweller?
Let's hear it. I know
Cool,
this is
cool.
your baby that
Oh yeah,
you've wanted for a while. Well, both of these next two watches that you're going to talk about are, but I think
yeah.
this one takes the cake.
Yeah, the Sky-Dweller 100% was like one of the first Rolexes that I was really enamored with. And I'll get into some reasons why in just a minute. But yeah, I want to talk about the Rolex Sky-Dweller. So, quick rundown here. We are looking at 42 millimeter case diameter. So, like we just talked about, a little bit bigger, a little bit more substantial watch in terms of like presence on the wrist compared to really everything that we've talked to so far, particularly the DateJust and the President, but even the Sub. So 42 millimeter. This comes in the white, a combination of the white and yellow with steel model. So you would have white gold and steel on the Jubilee, and then yellow, gold, and steel. Full yellow gold, full white gold, and full rose gold are the options when it comes to material. Case thickness on this is 14 millimeters, I believe. I put a note for myself to say that's unconfirmed. I couldn't really find it. Rolex do not give thickness specs
Mhm.
on their website, and you can find those for pretty much every other watch that we've looked at by somebody like Crown and Caliber, worn and wound, Hodinkee, somebody, no one has this. So
Yeah.
if anyone has one and they can confirm it, that would be awesome. But I think 14 millimeters sounds appropriate. It is a thick watch.
Yeah.
Water resistant to 100 meters. In this newest iteration, this is the reference number 336933 for all of you Rolex reference number folks out there. This one is going to come with the Rolex caliber 9002, which beats it plus minus 2 seconds per day, which is very accurate. This is going to beat at 4 hertz, 28,800 beats per hour, with a power reserve 72 hours on this one, ticked up from the 70 that we've seen most everywhere else. Again, similar to most Rolex models, you're going to have a wide range in cost here. So starting out the lowest point, 15,900. Again, these are Rolex AD numbers. So if you can get it, good luck. 15,900 for the white Rollsor. Again, this is two-tone. So this is Jubilee bracelet with stainless outer links, white gold center links. It's $300 cheaper, so $15,600 if you just want to go full oyster bracelet, full stainless steel. Moving up, 19,900 for the yellow gold two-tone, and 48,000 for full yellow gold on the oyster bracelet. Of course, if money's no object, that's my model right there. We just talked about it, like full gold and black dial. I just think it, the contrast there just pops so much. And the Sky-Dweller can have a lot going on the dial. If you get like a white dial, are pretty cool, but there's a lot going on. So I think the black against the white hour markers at least is helpful for me. I don't know. I like to have a very legible watch, but no way I'll ever afford that. A couple of details. So before we kind of just chit chat about it, I recently learned this, not while researching this, but maybe 2 or 3 months ago. Because again, I don't own one. I've never set a Sky-Dweller. So did you know that the bezel on this watch, actually there's three different positions that the bezel, that the fluted bezel will rotate to and like lock into, which that helps you to set all of the different complications along with the crown. So to back up just a minute, so the Sky-Dweller has a lot of complications to it. There is a date window, like you've seen on pretty much all Rolexes. There is a GMT function. So there's a second hour hand, or there's a second hour, second time zone indicator. There is an annual calendar / month of the year complication on this as well. So the month of the year has this really cool red square on the outside of the hour marker. And so, of course, 12 markers, 12
That's
months.
Very cool.
Very, very, very nice there. So annual calendar, GMT, and a date window. So to set it, you would rotate that fluted bezel, which again, it just seems like I have a fluted bezel, so it seems weird that one is available to be rotated. You rotate that and then pull the crown out. You've got positions, 0 where it's screwed in. So you have positions basically 2 and 3. They're going to control complications along with different bezels. So you move the bezel one direction and then pull the crown out. That would adjust the annual calendar. You do another position to adjust the date, and then another position to adjust the GMT, and so on and so forth. So super cool watch. The way the GMT works on this is also going to be a little bit different. So there's not the second hour hand on the Sky-Dweller, and this is for people maybe that just have not dug into it, and obviously podcasts. So I'm just trying to be a little descriptive here, but instead of having a second hour hand, there's like this center disc that has 24 hour indicator on it with an arrow at the top. So instead of the second hour hand traveling around the dial or the face of the watch, that red indicator sits in the center of the dial, and then that disc with the 24-hour display just rotates. So you actually don't even have to track the hour hand. You just track that arrow. So if it says 11, it's 11 a.m. in your reference time. If it says 22, then it's 10 p.m. in your reference time. So really, really cool the way that works too. It's a unique take, I think, as well for a GMT. It's better that they did that, to me, than putting a 24-hour scale somewhere else on the dial, because you already have the annual calendar block, that red block that's on the outside
Yeah.
of the hour marker. So they would have had to have put it in like the Rehat. Again, it's only the second time saying it on this podcast. I hate saying it because I don't ever know if I pronounce it right. They would have had to have done it there or printed it like in between maybe the 12-hour markers. So the way that they came up with this design is really awesome. Like, I give so much credit to Rolex for that design. So
Yeah.
that's cool. And then again, as you would kind of expect with a true GMT, this does allow independent changing of the local hour hand. So again, I mean, set your 24-hour time to your home time zone, and if I'm wearing one of these, jumping off to Amsterdam, move your bezel, pop your crown out, and 6 clicks ahead, and boom, now you've set your second time. So
Yeah.
very cool watch. Again, my favorite Rolex, I think, just from like the ingenuity perspective and like the design of all of it. I think I don't know, I just have such an appreciation for being able to
Yeah.
fit all of those functions into a watch. Again, we talked 14 millimeters, it's pretty thick, but incredible achievement from Rolex there. What's any specifics on like the design or anything like that that kind of pop out or stand out to you?
Yeah, I mean, this watch has always been very, different, I guess I would say. And honestly, for a very long time, because of it, I really wanted nothing to do with it. It took me a while to really appreciate and like that 24-hour, circle marker in the
Hmm.
center of the dial, like you were talking about. But it is different. I mean, I can't really, you might think of one, but I can't really think of another watch that's really like that. And
Yeah.
it's I don't even know if people are trying to like copy it and other things. Normally everybody tries to copy a Rolex in some sort of fashion,
Hmm.
but it's a very cool watch. My question to you, and I feel like this would even be more of a
Hmm.
my style watch, with just being bulkier.
Hmm.
Um, what made you? Was it just the love for the ingenuity of it that made you overlook the 14, millimeter,
Mm.
bezel size? All this
Yeah.
case size. I mean, what made you kind of I know you're always about, hey, I'm a 38,
I want
39,
slim.
40 millimeter biggest, at the biggest guy. And what made
Yeah.
you, jump this way to say, it's your favorite Rolex? Because I think it's a very big jump from, your favorite Rolex is this, and then
Yeah.
all the other watches you like are much smaller.
Yeah, no, it's a great question. I mean, I'm not going to say pretend like I'm not a walking contradiction when it comes to a lot of
Oh, yeah,
things, but
we all are.
this particular watch, yes, you called out the ingenuity and kind of just the design aspect. I mean, again, I have just such an appreciation for that plays probably 50% of the hand for this particular
Yeah.
model. That's why that's why I'm doing this podcast. That's why I have watches. I just think that it's a literal piece of like art and craftsmanship that's on your wrist. If I wanted to just tell the time, I've got a phone, or I could buy an Apple Watch. So yes, that's a big chunk of it, is the ingenuity behind it. The other one, I think, is just practicality. And I've talked about
Mm,
this on the podcast a lot, that I love a practical watch, one that's legible, that's got a date window. Everyone knows I love GMTs because I just think that they're so useful. So I think it's a 50-50 mix of this is a cool watch because you can travel with it. It's got the date, it's got, annual calendar. It just has a coolness about it, I think, with the look. Like, the like the bracelet, whether it's Oyster or Jubilee, looks no different than any other Rolex, right? Fluted bezel looks no different than other fluted bezels, but the dial is very unique. It is very different. The
oh
way
yeah.
that that center 24-hour disc is offset, it means that, and I'm looking at a picture, I'm sure that you are too, so you can see it. It might be hard
Yeah.
to describe this, but the reason, or the way that disc is offset, what it ends up doing is you have some of your hour markers, like the baton hands that you see on like a DateJust 41, for example, are the full size. Well, then like the 6 o'clock hour marker is no bigger almost than that month red block on the outside, because that center 24-hour disc is it's down on the dial, so it like overlays, and then the 5 and the 7 are a little bit smaller. So it's just this kind of quirky, just unique design. So yeah, both of those things. But yeah, it's a huge watch, and um, there's certainly a possibility, if I ever own one of these one day, that after a few months, I'm just like, man, this thing's too big. I don't know. Maybe I would get used to it as well. So who knows? It could go
Yeah.
either way. Yeah.
It's very good looking. You don't see too many of them, and the
You really
people that
don't.
do, and the people that do have them are, very, they're in love with them.
Mm-hmm.
Like I told you, one of my the AD guy I have over in Birmingham, just friend. I haven't really even bought anything from him, but his dream watch was this Sky-Dweller in the navy blue, and he finally got one I think last year, and I mean he wears it every day. I came back 3-4 months after he got it, and it completely scratched to hell. He's like, I haven't taken it off.
Yeah,
Okay,
I don't blame him.
so
I don't
yeah, I
blame
mean
him.
I feel like if you get that, you're in the cult of that's all you want, and
Mm-hmm.
that's what you're gonna do.
Yeah,
So
yeah. So it's a cool watch. I wonder if gold scratches as easily as stainless steel. Someone with a gold watch, DM or comment on something and let us know. I'm really curious because we've talked a lot about gold watches on this for the Rolex, um, but it makes me curious how they handle against scratches. I don't know.
yeah.
I don't have a gold watch. So.
well, I'll let you know over time. All right,
Yeah.
so, but yeah, kind of shifting away from those two watches. I mean, those are two very sought after, dressy, very cool watches. I wanted to talk about something a little more just toned down. What I don't want to say more attainable because any Rolex is hard to get, but maybe more obtainable in the aftermarket sector,
Hmm.
meaning that the price point won't be as big. But I wanted to talk about the Explorer 1 and 2. 1, I'm not a huge fan of. 2 is definitely my favorite by far, and I want one of these watches. I think they're perfect for just a dress down, sporty watch. But when you're talking about one, you might as well talk about the other, right? So the Explorer 1 came out very very small in my opinion, 36 millimeter, 40 as well. They have it in two-tone, which I think's an interesting look if you want to dress this watch up a little bit, but they also just have it in the stainless steel model, all oyster, no jubilee option here. To me there's no date window. You have the 369 hand, so kind of like a Air King almost. Those two kind of give off the same vibe, especially the older Air Kings. The new Air Kings look very
Hmm.
different and stand out. I honestly really like them. But the Explorer ones, to me, these watches, I feel like, I'm sure this was the original and these other people copied them, but these watches remind me of a Tudor Ranger. It
Mm.
reminds me of Tudor's version of this watch.
Yeah.
Very, very simplistic, not anything going there, almost like an OP, with a version of just like it's a Rolex and it's just a
Hmm.
Rolex. There's nothing, standing out about it. But, this might be what all anybody needs, wants. They don't, have a cool, want for a very out there watch. They just want something low key. And this is definitely the way to go with it. But yeah, it reminds me of the Tudor Ranger. It also reminds me of the Monte Triumph, kind of the same way. All these watches are just very, they're very popular. I know people that have the Rangers and the Triumph, and they're just very low key, and that's all you need, all you want. And there's really not much to be said here
Yeah.
about these. Like I said, you have it in 36. The 36 is in a two-tone or a stainless option, and then your 40 is in a stainless option. Black dials, I don't believe on the Explorer 1 they'll give you an option. Yeah, they will not give you an option for a different dial. You're looking at around 7,700 for the Explorer 40. Just stainless, you're looking at about 12 grand for the Explorer 36 with the two-tone. That seems very pricey.
Wait. Wait. How much? 12 for the Explorer
Eleven
One.
750 for the Explorer 1 two-tone.
11.
36 millimeter. That's very pricey for an Explorer 1 in my opinion.
I never
Um
noticed it until you just said it, but it really is. It's
yeah.
basically an OP with just a 369, and
Mhm.
I also have never noticed until right now the Mercedes hands. So the hour hand has the Mercedes hand,
Yep.
or sorry, I guess it's got Mercedes hand set across because I think the minute hand is different on that set too versus like the DateJust
Uh-huh.
handset is different than. So this has got the handset that like the sport watches do or the tool watches like
Mhm.
the
Yeah.
Sub, and I think maybe the
Because it
GMT as
is. I mean,
well.
it is their tool watch. It's your
Okay.
land tool watch. Your Sub is your water tool watch. This is your
Yeah.
land tool watch.
Yeah. Okay.
But you're talking 7,200. This is all, of course, from an AD. 7,200 for the 36 millimeter. You're talking 7,700 for the 40 millimeter. Both of those in stainless, black dial, very basic. And if you want to jump up to a two tone, you're looking at 12 grand, almost just under 11,750. So, a pretty big jump there, surprisingly. And that's a 36 millimeter. They don't make the two-tone in the 40. So
Right.
if you're wanting to kind of make your step up, and this is the watch I love, is their Explorer II. I think it completely revolutionized the game when it comes to their Explorer collection and really brought it back to the popularity that we all expect from their. I mean, this is your land tool watch. This is it. This is, you have your diver and then you have your tool watch for, quote unquote, the land.
Yeah.
And so they came out with the Explorer II. This is a 42 millimeter oyster steel, same thing. But the cool thing about this, they option this in a black dial or a white dial.
Mm-hmm.
And the white dial is by far stunning. You're talking, the other cool thing about this is a GMT function, which is nice for your tool watch function needs. And the GMT hand is actually an orange hand, which really, again, makes it pop, especially on that white dial, their polar, as they call it.
I just noticed too, the polar dial. Does the sub has the circular hour plots all around, right? Or do they have the rectangles at the 6 and 9?
God, I'm not even wearing my sub right now. What am I doing? Let me look right here.
Because if they don't,
They have the rectangles on. Yeah, they do. I thought they did.
Okay.
And
Because
so does the GMT. Yeah.
I've been wearing my Black Bay a lot lately, and I kind of just noticed that for like the first time. The Black Bay doesn't have a date window, so it's a little easier to sort of notice that the 369 are rectangles and everything else is circular. So I noticed that just now on the Polar. So it looks like that's probably some design heritage from maybe some subs or Oyster Princes from Tudor and or Rolex from probably back in like the 50s. It looks like.
Yeah. I mean, it's a good looking watch. I think all their tool ones really have that same dial layout when it comes to the hour markers. You're talking rectangle on the 6 and 9 if you have a date window. If you don't, then you have it as well on the 3. The Explorer 2 again has a date window. GMT function is a 42 millimeter. I mean, just a very all around very cool watch in my opinion. I think this is probably my favorite sporty white dial watch out there is their Explorer Polar. And I don't know if you agree or what your thought of it is. It is, again, since it is their land quote unquote tool watch, it is only 100 meters of water resistance. So again, I don't very much enough for whatever you want to do if you're bringing this out to the beach or something. But
so there's a 40 and a 42 Explorer too.
No, there's only 42s.
Only 42. Okay.
Yeah, the white, the polar, and the black dial are both 42s.
Okay.
But they do not wear like 42s. I can tell by personal experience. This is another watch that I've worn a lot of. Is the Polar. It does not wear like a 42. It's very low key. Almost wears like a 41. Just because there's the bezel of it is not jagged like you would subs and other things. It's very smoothed out brushed bezel. With the GMT. So I know somebody like you might even be, oh God, 42. I don't know, but I promise you'll try this on. You'll be like, this feels like the same feel of a Submariner would feel almost.
Yeah. No, I really like the Explorers. When I was at your house, I told you that I had watched I think Teddy B had made a video and the Explorer 2 in the two-tone was featured. So again, that's like black dial, stainless and yellow gold. And that was the kind of like, actually, I'll go ahead and say that was like really the one and only time that I've ever paid any mind or attention to the Explorer 1. And I was like, wow, that's really cool. And I think I told you that and you were like, yeah. And then I told one of our friends, Chris, at an AD about that. And he was like, ugh. He was like, I don't know. The Explorer 1's just never really done anything for me.
They get hate.
And
they get hate. Yeah.
Yeah. So I had this little like 1 week fling with like the idea of one of these. And I was like, oh, it maybe this could be like my second Rolex because it's like it's on the cheaper side. I'm sure it's easier to get. And now like I'm looking at pictures of it and I don't know. I don't know. Like it's okay. It's okay. But the same, at least for me, the same thing about the Explorer 2 is it doesn't do much for me like one direction or the other. I certainly don't dislike any of these, the 1 or the 2s, but I really don't love either one of them either. I've never worn the Explorer 2 in person. I've worn an Explorer 1, just like a very basic black dial full stainless, not two-tone or anything. So I don't know. Yeah, I mean, I think they're simple. I think it's like if you like the style of an OP and maybe you have a little bit more money to spend, I think this maybe could be like a good alternative to get like an Explorer One, for example. Like you were saying, it looks a little bit more like some kind of vintage, or not vintage Air
Mm-hmm.
Kings, but maybe, Air Kings from like, 5, 7, 10 years ago, I believe. So like that could be a cool watch. But I guess I agree with you. You get a lot more bang for your buck with the Explorer 2. At the
Yeah.
same time, if you can get like just the black dial Explorer 1 and you like the dial layout with the 369 versus the DateJust 12 or the, 11 batons and the upside down triangle, if you like that more, and like I said, this has the Mercedes handset, you can spend like an extra 300-400 bucks to get that. Whereas
Yeah.
the Explorer 2, you're creeping more towards the 10, 11, 12K versus like 7, 8K. So
Yeah.
I do think you get more bang for your buck. However, I can also see the Explorer 1 as like a nice little alternative for maybe a little bit more quote unquote upscale entry level option than either the Air King or the OP. So that's kind of my
Yeah.
2 cents on it. That's, yeah.
Yeah, I mean, I agree with that. I think definitely more bang for your buck. You're talking a couple grand difference between the two and one. But the two, you get a GMT, you get a bigger watch, you get the date function. It's just all around. I've seen the Explorer 2 Polar out in the wild many a
Yeah.
times, and it is shocking how dressed up it can be because it's just very shiny. It's more shiny than you would imagine.
Yeah.
Um, but it can be dressed up very nicely and dressed down very nicely as well. I mean, it's your perfect, dad watch going out to the park with your kid. Going to
Yeah.
watch your kid play park ball, baseball, soccer, something like that. Um, Football over for the European crowd. But it's a very cool watch. It's really captured my heart. There's been a couple times I've been able to get one, but I just really wasn't ready. But I think when I'm wanting a white dial sporty watch, this is definitely, there's really nothing else that compares, unless you want to step your game up to a Daytona, but then you're talking tripling the price, and
Right.
a whole different ball game there.
Unless you're getting it retail, which is
Yeah.
very tough. Yeah.
I mean, but honestly, hearing you talk about the OP, and this is just a different option for that. Me personally, I know, me and you disagree on a lot with watches, but me personally, I think I like the OP better than the Explorer One.
Okay.
Yeah,
So you kind of
price
just
point.
like that kind of cleaner
I
dial with
like
the
the cleaner,
batons and
simple. Yeah, I mean, it's simple. It's just, yeah, I think, I don't know why. Just the OP. I've honestly liked the OPs to an extent. You for
yeah.
a third, fourth Rolex, not like you're only one, I guess, unless that's all you can get, which is fine. But I think definitely down the road, it would definitely be a watch I would think about getting. If I'm thinking, hey, I want another Rolex, but I don't want to spend as much money as the past ones, I'm definitely going OP before I'm going Explorer One,
Okay. Interesting. Well,
which is surprising. Yeah.
so yeah, I was gonna say when you're talking about the Explorer 2 and how, like that's like one of your favorite ones and you can dress it up and everything.
Hmm.
I mean, it really is just like your personal preference, right?
Yeah.
Because
Yeah.
I don't think there's no like real strong disagreement with the idea that you get more bang for your buck.
Yeah.
Yes, is the price more up there? It's not like, a 5% increase. It's a little bit more than that compared to the Explorer 1, but we're not disagreeing and splitting hairs on that. I think more so than that, it's really just your personal styling because while like I, for
Yeah.
example, love GMTs and I think that they're really practical and I love practical watches, which really draws me to a GMT watch, a lot of people don't. And
Hmm.
well, I know more people that have GMTs that just never set that reference hour hand than do. Like
Yeah.
shockingly more. Almost everyone that I know that wears a GMT watch. Because I don't know, like maybe it's just random curiosity. But whenever I see
Hmm.
people, and of course I know, I'm not stopping like strangers on the street. I'm like, hey man, what's your Starbucks reference time set to? But I'll
Yeah.
ask like people that I do know that, and a lot of like 9 times out of 10, the answer is like, oh, I've just never set it. I just popped out the
Yeah.
crown and just used the quick set to set the normal one, and then that GMT hand just is kind of along for the ride. And so to me personally, I'm like, well, like, why did you want that watch? Like, what, like, I'm curious now, what was it about the watch that you wanted it for? If it wasn't to use what the watch is designed for. Obviously these
Yeah.
watches are bits of jewelry. And so I get that, like, they are very well refined and, it's not it's not a knock on someone that doesn't, use it, but like the date window, right? Wouldn't it be weird if someone had a DateJust and the date window was just always wrong and they're like, "Oh, I just don't use
Yeah,
that." Like,
that would be
I
weird.
just think that's weird, but maybe that's
Yeah.
me. I'm a very OCD person. I'm somewhat type A, and when it comes to watches, I want them to work and I want them to be practically working and available. So maybe that's just a me thing, but that's why I say I think it's just kind of that personal styling because also for me, like loving GMTs, I don't love that kind of layout on the bezel so much. It's the same thing with like the Black Bay Pro, right? I think it's cool and like it's again, every watch has got its place in a collection depending on how big the collection is. If I'm
Mm-hmm.
limited to just one or two GMTs, it probably wouldn't be an Explorer 2. But if I'm looking at like my third or fourth one, to your point, if you don't have a white dial watch and you're really into like the Opaline and the white dial, which I just got my first one, let me tell you, it's a game changer. Then yes, this watch begins to come into the equation again on your third or fourth one. So it wouldn't be my first one. I do think that they're strikingly different watches, the one and the two, but it makes for a good conversation because your price range is it's on the lower end, like you said, a little bit easier to obtain from Rolex, and you get two really different styles. So I knock on Rolex a lot for some of the things that they do and the things that I don't like. This is one of those things I really like. They give you two different styles on the more
Mm-hmm.
affordable end of the spectrum. If, you've got two tone for the people that like it, and then going all the way full circle. Again, this is just kind of an updated version of like an OP or like an Air King, like a refreshed version of those with a little bit of different, some subtle differences. So now, if you look at the whole catalog, now you're looking at Air King, OP, DateJust, and Explorer One. Four watches that are very similar, yet the prices are lower. They're all easier to get compared to all of these other ones, and they're all a little bit different. So I
Mm-hmm.
say that's a big win for Rolex because it opens the door for people to get in and have some variety. They don't all have to get in and go get an Air King. We don't all have to have the same one. Um, so yeah, I think that's kind of cool.
Yeah, no, I mean, I agree to that 100%. I think it's now time for your final, baby here. And this is one
Yeah.
that I definitely 100% see the love for. And I think we finally agree wholeheartedly on this watch that is, very cool, very amazing. And it's the GMT Master II.
Yeah. Yeah. So some might say the best for last, the GMT Master II, right alongside the sub. I
Very
think,
iconic. Yeah.
yeah, I think like the two most popular subs, right? They're the
Yeah.
most sought after. They're the most iconic. If you're interested in Rolex and you like Rolex, but you're maybe not like a huge fanboy like me, like I don't know all of like the nicknames. I have to write them down to remember them. This is the other half of where all the nicknames come from. So the GMT Master II, really quick rundown here. 40 millimeter in case diameter, so step down from that much larger Sky-Dweller at 42. So back to kind
Mm-hmm.
of the normal range for Rolex in the 2023 collection, 40 millimeter. We've got the option for just the Oyster Steel, both with the Jubilee and the Oyster bracelet. We have full yellow gold, full rose and white gold, and then we also have the steel and gold, yellow and rose combos.
Mm-hmm.
So lots of options from Rolex. That's been a theme that I've noticed. I mean, I knew that they were out there, but a lot of people I think tend to stick with stainless. So you don't see a lot of these combinations. But doing the
Yeah.
research, because we do this with like every watch that we do, we run through, give you a diameter, and then the materials available. Most of them, it's like you have a leather strap and stainless steel. Rolex is like, we're gonna give you 9 different ways that we can build
Nine
this watch.
precious metals, and yeah,
Yeah.
very different. And I
So
know going back here, I think I don't know. It's kind of like what came first, the chicken or the egg. Why do you think the sub and the GMT are more popular? I think they're very noticeable because these are the two that have by far the most nicknames. And why is
mhm.
it? Did they get the nicknames because they're the most popular, or is that why they're the most popular? Is because they were just so easily nicknamed? And
Well, I mean, I would say that they're probably the most popular. I think the GMT is sort of lives in the shadow of the sub a little bit. The sub,
hmm
I think, always has been popular, and I think it always will be, no matter what. I don't know if the GMT has and will always be like that. I'm sure that it's not far behind. But I just think that the dive watch / tool watch genre, like we've talked about that before, everyone knows that.
Yep.
It's no secret. That's just popular. That's what everyone
Mhm.
likes. Most companies' top selling watch and their big flagship model is going to be a dive watch. Most of them, the S&P 300,
Yeah.
the Rolex Submariner, Longines, Hydro Conquest. The list will go on and on and on, no matter what brand that you're looking at, except for like, maybe a Grand Seiko that's not really in their wheelhouse. So except for maybe some brands that just play in a different arena kind of altogether,
Mhm.
I think that's why the GMT Master is so popular, because it effectively looks just like the Sub. It's basically the same dimensions. It's got a GMT bezel instead of a dive bezel, and the
Yeah.
extra hour hand to go along with it. That's really the only difference between
Yeah.
them. I think that's why it's so popular. And again, I think it kind of trails in the shadow. I think the Sub is the 1A to the GMT's 1B.
Yeah. And
That's
because I
my
guess
just
the
about.
subs being nicknamed, a lot of those nicknamed, it's just easy to continue to nickname something that looks just like them.
Yeah, and I think it's easy too, because the Sub nicknames, are it's dial and bezel combo, or
Mhm.
dial just specifically. And I think GMT, it just made sense to, like you said, to continue it, because now you get two colors on the bezel plus one on the dial. So I think it just made more. It was just another way for people to get creative with
Yeah.
the Guinness in 2023. And
Yeah.
there's the left hand drive, the Sprite, right? There's
Yeah.
I think it was just easy, like you said, to continue it. That's a good way
Yeah,
to.
I mean, I don't disagree with any of the nicknames. I love the Guinness. I would have never guessed that one. That's where they pulled it out of. But I guess continuing with the drink
Yeah,
nicknames of Coke, Pepsi, root beer,
Pepsi, Sprite, root
Guinness.
beer.
Yeah,
Yeah. So
very cool.
cool. Well, a few more specs really quickly. Case thickness 11.9. Let me put this into a little bit of perspective for everyone. So the GMT Master 11.9 case thickness, the unconfirmed Sky-Dweller thickness 14 millimeters. And then
Yeah,
if we go back to the watches that we looked at on episode 1, the DateJust, for example, 11.7 millimeters. So it's interesting, like the 14 to 11, we can sort of use that for perspective, but the 11.7 to 11.9 comparison between the DateJust and the GMT, to me, that seems like a little bit off. Like it seems like it would be more of a gap, but nonetheless, wanted to throw that out there for a little bit of perspective. Water resistance, 100 meters again. The 3285 is going to be the Rolex caliber in this one, also regulated to plus or minus 2 seconds per day. If you weren't here or don't recall from Rolex episode 1, part 1, that's the superlative chronometer that Rolex goes beyond the cost certification. So that's how they get that plus to minus 2 seconds per day. 4 hertz, 28,800 beats per hour, back down to 70 hours on the power reserve in this one. And really quickly, the cost variation, because we've done this for pretty much every watch, it's going to be a big range. 10.9 thousand or 10.9K US for the steel models. This would be Batman and Batgirl. Wait, is it Batgirl or Batwoman? Batgirl?
yeah.
Are
So
you
the
muted?
the GMT, the Batman is Oyster and the Batgirl's Jubilee.
Batman. Okay, yeah. So
Yeah.
Batman and Batgirl. Okay, I just couldn't remember if it was girl or woman.
Yeah, yeah.
Um,
Girl is on the Jubilee, which is by far my favorite. Same thing with a
yeah.
Pepsi. I don't know why, but I've actually somebody I know, a coworker, has the Pepsi on an Oyster, and I mean it looks fine,
Mm,
but there's nothing that competes with the Jubilee on those two,
no,
and the Guinness as well. I think the Jubilee is just a very cool mix, in my opinion.
it
Which
is
normally I would think not, because normally Jubilee, as I talked to you about it on your DateJust, it makes the watch very dressy, and when you see
dressy.
Jubilee, you think dress. But for some reason, the Pepsi and the Batgirl, I just love much better. The Batgirl and the Pepsi on the Jubilee much better than it on an Oyster.
I yeah, wholeheartedly agree. It's one of those things that shouldn't make sense, and it just does. It just works. One of my good friends, Stefan, he just got his first Rolex, a Pepsi as well. And yeah, I mean, it's on the Jubilee, and it looks twice as good, I think, as the Oyster. Totally agree with you there. So 10.9K for still models. Again, Batman, Batgirl. That includes Pepsi, the left-hand drive Sprite. I believe is also that 10.9K. 16.5 for two-tone in both yellow and in rose. 38.9K for full yellow gold. That's the Guinness?
Yeah.
Because that's the
So
new one, right? That's the new one from Watches and Wonders.
Yeah, that's going to sit there and compete with your which same price point of your Submariner solid gold.
Full. Okay,
They're all
yeah.
right there at 40,000. So again, that is another watch I tried on in the Bahamas, and gosh, man, I'm telling you, the Guinness. I love the Guinness. I don't understand. There's a little clan of people that hate the Guinness, hate on the two-tone or the solid. I mean, I think it looks awesome. That black and
So,
gray is awesome.
so what's the? Hold on. Let me just wrap this one thing up and then question for you. So 38,900 for the full yellow gold, 40,600 for the white gold. This would be like a Pepsi bezel, but with white gold.
Hmm.
I think that is an oyster bracelet. I think
Yeah,
it might have the option for a Jubilee, but I'm pretty sure that the white gold is going to be oyster again, Pepsi
yeah.
bezel.
It's
Yeah,
oyster, and then as well they have the option for the meteorite dial there, which is
that's
amazing.
right. Yep.
And that meteorite dial is awesome. That's right at 43,000 as well.
Yep. Okay. Yep. Good call out for the meteorite and the white gold, and then
Hmm.
also full rose gold again on the oyster bracelet, I believe, and then that one's gonna have a root beer bezel. So kind of two
Hmm.
different shades there. The question I was gonna ask now that I'm wrapped up with the specs and everything, is the Guinness, is that the two tone with the black and gray bezel, and then the
Yeah.
full yellow, that's the Wolf of Wall Street? Is that like, what nickname did they give that?
I think they're all just Guinness as long as it has the black and gray with anything.
Okay.
I think it's
So
just
that's the
Guinness.
bezel
Yeah.
nickname, not the
Yeah.
okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
Now, the Wolf of Wall that movie, I'm pretty sure in the movie himself, he actually wore like a tag, but I think it was supposed to replicate. I don't know if he wore a solid gold black sub
Mm,
or if he in real life wore a tag, but I know in the
okay.
movie he was wearing a tag, but it looked just like the solid gold black,
Yeah.
just fully
Because
black.
I've seen the Wolf of Wall Street like the Rolex nickname Wolf of Wall Street. I've seen it in multiple places, so I just didn't know if that
Mm,
was like the full yellow and then the two tone Guinness
yeah.
was just the Guinness, but it sounds like it's all a little bit up in the air. If anyone
It's
has
really just
definitive.
about the bezel. Yeah.
Yeah. Well, and and I've noticed with like Watches and Wonders this year, like the celebration dial um on the OP, right? We thought that was
Mhm.
Dippin' Dots initially, and
Yeah.
now it's the celebration dial. I think the emoji one, I think that one stayed the same, right? That's called just
Yeah.
the emoji. So the Rolex nicknames, I think that when they come out, it's sort of crowdsourced.
Yeah.
And then I think it just takes on like accepted majority popularity. I think that just like in the end wins over. So
Yeah.
um yeah, maybe the names are still being determined, but
It'll probably change it over time. Yeah.
yeah. But
No. Yeah. Go ahead.
oh,
This
sorry, yeah, I was
great
just gonna
watch.
say yeah, and I was just gonna say like lots of options here. Lots of combination options, right? Like again, lots of the nicknames come from this. The black dial green bezel, the Starbucks Smurf variations, the all green dial bezel Hulk, the black blue Batman and Batgirl, the Pepsi. So there's a lot of variation here. Again, I've already kind of talked about it, but along with the sub, these two, I personally think that like these are the two flagship Rolex models to me in my mind.
Mhm.
Whenever I think of Rolex, my mind just sort of naturally goes there, even though I own one and it's neither of these. These are, I think, just the two popular. These are the ones with the nicknames. This is what a lot of people are looking for.
Yeah.
Um, so yeah, I mean, I don't have a whole lot of like other, pros or cons against this watch. I love a GMT. I don't love the kind of dimensions of like the new, the current day sub like tool watch layout from Rolex. I think it's a little bit bigger. I think like the 16610s.
Mhm.
Um, I think those are more my style, just aesthetically and just from a sizing perspective.
Yeah.
But yeah, I mean they're beautiful looking watches, man, and I love a GMT. So
Yeah. I mean, they're great. I think if you love a sub, you're gonna like these, and if you like GMT functions, and I think anybody that's had a GMT before will say they like GMT functions. I didn't really
hmm
care if I had one or not until I really started, like wearing yours around sometimes. I'm like, man, this GMT is pretty cool.
hmm
Or having the Manta, their
the
watch end that they
SkyQuest,
gave
yeah.
us, yeah, the SkyQuest they gave us for a month or two. I mean, that just really set off my love for a GMT, and I think again, you can't go wrong with this just because you have so many, options here. And, I know a lot of them. I think the older, I don't think they make it anymore. So I don't even know if I want to bring it up. I think there were some older GMTs that were just like solid black from Rolex back in the
Mm,
day. So, you have the option if you're like, I don't like the two-tone look. I think it looks, out there. They have older options that you could go and find. But you have more options here than you even do on the Submariner. So
hmm I'm fact checking myself right now. Is it really for a Batman or a Batgirl? Is it really just 10,000? So it's 10,900 for a Batgirl.
it's just the value of them aftermarket are so high because they're impossible to get.
Jeez, man,
Yeah, it's crazy how, and
that
that's what
is
that's what we've always
insane.
talked about. Even with the Daytona, I know the value of those have, aftermarket have dropped pretty tremendously in the last year just because they're a stainless steel watch. When the
Yeah,
demand for them goes down, your value is not going to hold like a gold one will. Just for
right.
that reason alone. And I think the Batgirl, Batman, Pepsis, all those are, they're seeing a drop in, a couple grand over the last year of aftermarket selling.
Yeah,
And I mean, it's a stainless, it's a stainless watch, and that's why. Unless you
this
do something
is
crazy with a meteorite or white gold, it's not going to hold the value. Like, you
yeah,
know,
yeah. Um, and we talked about a little bit about the black and the gray bezel, the new ones coming out. I mean, it's really the only new thing really that they added. I mean, we have full yellow gold Rolexes today. Like we've had those,
hmm
right? The Sky-Dweller, the Day-Date. So the idea of a solid yellow gold GMT is not that crazy. But the new bezel, I think that that's what drew up a lot of that discussion, a lot of that interest in these. We've talked about the nicknames and everything like that. So yeah, I mean the last thing to add for me, you talked about the Sky Quest and it reminded me of something. Whenever I had that for, because I had it for like about a week. You were really the one that wanted that and wanted to give that a test drive.
hmm
And it's not to compare a Manta and a Rolex. This is just like sizing and dimension comparison because the Sky Quest excuse me, has a big, pretty substantial, pretty chunky GMT bezel, the same as this one. And I was so excited. I wanted to buy a Manta SkyQuest. In my mind, I'm like, this is 25 or 30% the cost of a Pepsi or a Batman. I can get it. It is available to me. And when I got it on my wrist, it was just too big. So, Skydweller, I said that maybe if I was an owner, if someone called me today, right, and I go and just slap that credit card down, baby, and I put myself into debt, maybe in a month I hate myself because now I'm in debt and I don't like the watch. So I don't know. That would be the only thing that concerns me about being like an owner of one of these. I would be more than happy to buy one from an AD though, because if I didn't enjoy it, I would just sell it and enjoy the fruits of that call from the AD. But that would be the reason to me why I would not even sniff one of these watches aftermarket. There
hmm
is not a shot in hell that I would consider it, that I would take the call, that I would give it more than a second's thought. And that is an excellent segue. I'm glad that you brought that up, the aftermarket, because it's what our mailbag question is about. So I'm ready to jump over there if you are, and kind of continue on this topic.
Yeah, definitely.
Okay.
I'm trying to think anything else. Again, I just don't understand. I would just want to re-emphasize this. I don't understand the hate for the Guinness just because black and gray. I love those two color combinations. I don't understand why some people are so against it. I think it's a very good toned down version of a GMT. If you don't like the stark blue and red or black and blue,
Yeah.
I think it's great. Anyway,
People
continue to the
just want
mailbag.
something to whine about. I
Oh yeah,
mean,
it's
like
Rolex.
why
They
would
want
you
to hate.
not? Yeah, I mean, why would you hate about like just another option? I
I
mean, now,
promise those same people, if they could get it, they would not whine about it.
yeah, because now you've got green, red, blue, and black and gray bezels available to you. Like, why are you complaining about that? Like, worry about your Sprite or your Pepsi. Like, let me enjoy the
hmm
Guinness.
Yeah.
Cool. So let's go ahead and jump into mailbag. And like I said, we're going to kind of continue on this topic. So this question comes in from a listener of the show, follower on social, Nexus _GGC. Nexus asks, asked us, what are your thoughts on the Rolex waitlist issues, just kind of in general, like 80 games and waitlisting, the idea around that with Rolex in general. Very quickly, I'll start this off. There's two ways to view it, in my opinion. You either view this as watches are an investment. You could say Rolexes are an investment and not watches there if you want to. Rolexes are an investment, but the price that you have to pay for that investment and for that appreciation and the ROI is the waiting game and the games, the BS spending games that you have to play with these ADs. The other way to look at it is that watches slash Rolexes are meant for having and they're meant for wearing. They're not meant to be waited on, regardless of what happens to the aftermarket values. So I think that as a consumer and as a watch collector, you need to choose one of those two paths for yourself and not straddle the line in the middle because you'll drive yourself nuts, I think. I personally would rather see Rolex watches become available than retain their value. I mean, I love the fact that, when you have a Rolex, you sort of assume and you understand that the price of it's going to go up aftermarket, that the value of it's going to go up. Will it fluctuate with the markets? Yeah, of course. Like you said, stainless steel is going to fluctuate more than gold. It's not made of gold. However, I think it's even cooler if I could walk into a store tomorrow, if I've got the money, and go buy a Guinness. I don't want to, like, why do I need to spend $50,000 on tags and Grand Seikos and everything else just to hope that my AD calls me? So, maybe this is like a classist thing. Maybe I'm just not rich enough to enjoy the fruits of what Rolex make. But again, that's just my two ways of looking at it. They're either an investment or they're meant to be had and appreciated. I would rather have them and not see them appreciate than wait and see them gain their value. I'm just going to leave it at that. If you want to add anything onto it, I'll open it to you.
Yeah. I mean, I think I'm pretty much echoing the same thing. I'll try to halfway attack it from the other direction, just, play devil's advocate.
I mean, you don't have to play devil's advocate. If you feel strongly, like, because I'm
Yeah.
interested to know, like, I want to know what people think, and like
I mean,
you're more of a fan than I am, so I'm curious to know your stance on it.
I think part of 50% of the reason the Rolex is what it is because of that, and because they retain the value. And I think you're not retaining the value if it's just as easy to get one of those as it is something else. I mean, again, we've talked about it 100 times ad nauseum. The Rolex does marketing amazing and
Mm-hmm.
their wait list amazing because that's why they're the value they are. They don't do anything crazy special. They're not Patek. They're not, any of these
Yeah.
crazy special movements that you have. They're just a very good watch that everybody knows the name of because of the marketing and because their granddad and their dads always had one. And, that they were always grew up taught this is my watch and you better not mess it up or I'll kill you, type thing. This is, and I think that's why. And keeping the wait list is going to help keep that. So, I mean, once you have one, now the wait list where it is today is a little excessive. I'll agree with that. But I think, I mean, once you have a couple, you're almost like, well, I went through that hell. It's kind of like, when you're in a fraternity or something, I went through that hell to get here. Now I don't want everybody else to have one so easily when I had to go through all that crap to do it.
Yeah.
So, maybe to the extent where it is pretty wild, where it's almost like impossible to get it.
Yeah.
Even back in the old days before COVID and all, when it was still $5,000 to buy a Hulk,
Yeah.
aftermarket. I think it was still, you were on a wait list, but you weren't on one for this long. I think I understand the wait list and waiting a couple months maybe to get a very cool, exactly what you want. Kind of like buying a custom built couch. You're going to wait 2, 3, 4 months to get it, but it's exactly what you want. I get it there where if you're like, hey, I'm going to this AD and I want this exact, I want a Pepsi Jubilee bracelet, but they have an Oyster here, but I want the Jubilee and I will wait those few months, but I know I'm getting it. Versus where
Okay.
I'm going in there and I'm telling them I want a Pepsi Jubilee and I don't know if I will have it in the next 5 years.
Yeah.
We
You just
or
never know.
get it. Yeah, because in 4 years from now, you're going to forget about it. They're going to forget about you, and you're not going
Mm-hmm.
to sit there and grovel at some guy you don't know that. Yeah, I'm not going to get into it. I could get pretty bad here.
Yeah.
Grovel at some guy you don't know and try to suck up to him for a while. I'm not to that point. I'm not that lowly where I'm just like, I'm just going to sit here and I'm going to go see him once a week and
Yeah.
try to befriend this guy and have a fake friendship just for a freaking watch. Are you kidding me?
Yeah.
And that's how a lot of people are. I'm like, before I get that low, I'm just buying one aftermarket and I don't care, because you have more self-respect than sitting there and groveling at some person you don't know. I get it. Again, if it's your friend, and we've made some really good friends through this, industry and ADs. I'm not talking about them, but I know there are a lot of people, and those guys that work there too, they know half their friendships are fake because of it. You're like, these guys, if I was working at freaking Dell as an SDR, would they be as
Yeah.
friendly to me as if I'm selling them a Rolex that they're just begging for?
Yeah.
And I think that's gotten really out of hand, and I'm sure it'll adjust at some point. And when, I don't know, it could be a year, it could be 5 years. Probably won't be a year, because we thought this time last year we were thinking by now it would be getting a lot better, and it really hasn't.
Yeah.
But I don't know. I don't want it to go away completely personally, but I would like it to get a little bit easier. But I
Yeah.
think, again, that's part of the allure of Rolex, is that it's not the easiest thing in the world to get. It's not like going to your Macy's and buying a Citizen.
Mm-hmm.
It's harder, but I would like it to not be impossible. I can say that.
Yeah.
Where I feel like it is now, it's almost impossible.
Yeah. Yeah. No, that's a good perspective, and yeah, I mean, I would like to see it that way too. I don't think it doesn't need to be where anyone can just walk in off the street and just get one, because like you said, then like the value, and I know that's like a slippery slope, right? Because now you're talking about like supply and demand, and like, just it's just markets in general. So it's like, I think what you said would be like an ideal solution, right? If
Hmm.
if you walked in and they're like, well, we have this one, but you want a meteorite dial. Well, okay, you probably have to wait 2-3 months, right? 1 or 2 quarters, let's say. But
Yeah.
the idea that I can go somewhere tomorrow looking for an Air King and no one's gonna have it,
The most
and
simple,
and
basic
yeah, and
watch
you
out
might,
there. Yeah.
yeah, and it might take a year for you to get that. And I think that you become more opinionated on this topic the more that you collect watches, regardless of brand. And I say that because when we walk into ADs to go look at a watch that we are hoping to buy soon, and we're just looking at it for the second or the third time, or we're just going in there just because we're next door and we just wanted to hop in and say what's up to, like you just said, to the friends that we've met throughout, the time that we've been doing this, right? I always go in there and there's always someone at the Rolex counter. And
Yeah.
if you catch them at the right time when they're first walking in, you'll always hear the wife or the husband or the son ask, "What Rolexes do you have that you can show me?" There's never anything there, dude. Like,
Yeah.
and I think that's part of the problem, is that if you're a collector, you know what the game is and you know what to expect, and you're not going to be bothered by it because you just know. Maybe you're upset that life is the way that it is, but you know at least to expect it. Other people walk in and they get that runaround. I think the ADs probably hate it. They probably hate having to entertain random people that they've never seen before and they'll probably never see after, walk in and ask them about a Rolex that they want to get. Because, like what you just said, there's not going to be a relationship there. More than likely, they were just visiting Atlanta or
Yeah.
Dallas or wherever in the hell it was. They popped into a store because there was a sign that said Rolex. They had some money and maybe they were looking to spend something to mark this occasion or this anniversary or whatever. And the ADs have to pull out exhibition models.
Yeah.
It's like, just do away with the exhibition models, right? Let's just call it what it is. If Rolex is going to make only, the million a year that is claimed or whatever, if they're only going to make that many, and if the waitlist is not going anywhere, why, like, what the hell are we still doing with these exhibition models?
Well,
If you want,
that's
if you want to set up private showings for someone that is
yeah.
like a serious client, and within the next year they're telling you that they're willing and able to purchase one of these watches, like, then go do it. But like, I would hate to work at one of these places because all day long you're probably showing watches that you can't even sell to people,
Yeah.
and
And
I
that's
think
what
it's I think it's silly.
we were actually talking about that exact thing when we were, a lot of places, especially in the US, you're going to do Rolex, like Mayors in Atlanta. You know, they sell
Mm-hmm.
multiple watches, but they also sell Rolex. When we went to the Bahamas in June, you know, they had like a set aside Rolex store. We're like, why are they paying this money to just have this store here that they can't sell anything out of? They could sell just as many Rolexes by not having a store and, you know, doing it online, because everybody's going to want one anyways. Like, you're paying, you know, in this very nice resort, you're paying no telling how much a month.
Yeah.
And you have 150 people coming in there a day, you know,
Just paying
begging.
the lease
Like
is,
exactly what you said, where, you know, I can imagine being a Rolex person. Your literally job is to sit in that store and tell people they can't buy your shit.
yep.
Like, that is your job. It's not to sell anything. It's not anything. You just sit in there and you just are like, yeah, you can look, but I'll take this watch off so you can try it on, and then leave to never be seen again.
And then I'll
It's
punch in your
crazy.
name and your address and and
And
yada, yada, yada. And
throw
you'll
it away
never
in the
hear from
trash
us.
can when you
Yeah.
leave, because you know you're not going to hear it anyways.
Yeah.
Yeah. Especially in
Now,
a place like that where like nobody lives there. It's a vacation place.
yeah.
And anyways,
Now,
it's
see,
wild.
I can see from, and this is where it gets a little bit weird, right? I can see from Rolex's perspective why they don't want to do that. They don't need to change anything. They don't care that they're spending that much in you know, on the lease for that place, because look at how much money they're making. Like, hand over fist, they're making money. So I get it from their perspective. They're probably looking at it like, hey, this is working out great. We're making
Yeah.
X number of watches a year.
But I'm like,
And
you can
who
sell
cares
just as many
if the
watches with or without that store, I feel like.
well, but I don't know, right? I don't
Yeah.
know, because even though we're sitting here saying you get these randos that walk into a store, they ask the AD says their exhibition, we'll put you on a wait list, and then they walk out, probably never to be seen again. Well, that's probably 90% of people, but 10%, maybe they do get that call and maybe they do buy it. So
Yeah.
if you lose 10% of your sales, now is it worth it to have not paid for all those? I don't know what the correlation is there when you talk about a collector like you and me. If someone called me to like today, if one of my friends, or if like an AD called me today and they're like, hey, we have an Air King, I'm not going to go get it. If we have a sub, I might go get it. If we have a GMT, I'd probably go get it, you know?
Mhm.
There, so, but to the average person walking in, like I don't know if there's a need for that education for someone like that, and then I don't know how much of the allocations are going to someone like you and me versus someone that maybe they need to go see them in person to figure out which one that they want, you
Yeah.
know? So I don't know what that breakup looks like, and we'll never know what that looks like. That's
Yeah.
just like my, you know, almost like cynical assumption that like from the consumer side, it's pretty annoying. We can all agree
Yeah.
with that. And from the AD's perspective, they're probably pretty annoyed. From Rolex, we have no idea how they view it. They might look at it like I said, everything's working. Why change
Mhm.
it?
Mm.
So I don't know what that looks like. I just know that your scenario that you initially put out to me would be perfect, where the wait list is kind of to be expected, but it's reasonable. Right now, it's
Mhm.
just not reasonable.
Yeah.
I mean, you know, the AD that I've spent all of my, you know, spend with,
Yeah.
I mean, they're not calling me. I'm pretty sure I have multiple subs, multiple GMTs, at least one Sky-Dweller, and potentially some like Explorer OP, you know, more
Yeah.
entry level models waitlisted for multiple years, you know, and I own a few watches. Like, I'm
And
not getting a
you
call.
haven't spent no money with them, I can tell you. You've
Yeah.
spent more than I have. Yeah.
Yeah. So
More
it's
than
like, so to answer the
but it's
question about the
because you're
game,
not.
I hate the
Yeah.
game and I think
Yeah.
it's somewhat disrespectful,
Yeah.
but I can see why the game exists, I guess. And maybe it's just a necessary evil. I don't know. I don't know.
Yeah. Well, Rolex is building a factory, so maybe they'll start pumping more out and it'll get better, but you know,
Yeah.
I wouldn't hold your breath.
Didn't we talk about that like 3 months ago? I was like, we got on. I was like, oh, did you hear about the?
Yeah, there's been zero movement since it was
No,
it's
nothing has changed. Every
Yeah.
year we hear something
Yeah.
like that. Nothing ever changes.
Yeah. But
So
anyways, well, I mean, again, we have a lot more to talk about when it comes to Rolex. I feel like we will maybe by the end of the year, maybe could be a Christmas special or Thanksgiving special where I
yeah,
mean, we can sit here and I'd still love to talk about the Daytonas and the OPs and other, you know, brands that we could sit here and have. So there's a lot more to talk about. And if you guys want it, just definitely let us know. And, you know, I hope you enjoyed this episode and we have another one. Do we know what our next episode is yet, Brett?
I believe so. Yes, we had a listener poll or a listener slash social poll that went up, and Seiko took the cake. It was the second highest voted for when we did the Cartier poll. Cartier edged it out by like 1 or 2 votes, and then Seiko took this one by like 1 or 2 votes. So
yeah,
we're going.
I saw it was between there and Hamilton, and I was like, gosh, I really would love to do either of those. So it didn't really matter for me. But we'll also do Hamilton. I think we need to do Hamilton pretty soon. So maybe after Seiko, we'll do that just to kind of hop on this train of it's been in a lot of movies lately.
Yeah.
So we'll definitely, those might be our next 2. If you listen to this late, you have a sneak peek to what will be after.
Yeah. And in that same vein, we always talk about, hey, if you could follow us, that would be helpful. But this is some of the stuff like, part of it is, yes, it is helpful. And yes, we do appreciate that. And yes, we want to interact with you all, but this is part of the benefit for you. We do like to put polls up and get your feedback. Like if you like this episode, we want to hear it. If this episode sucked, we want to hear it. And then, to David's point, like, we want you all to sort of drive this a little bit. Just kind of be along in the passenger seat with us, I guess is the good metaphor there. So, to that point, Seiko was voted on. I think we'll do that next. We wanted to give, we gave Rolex the big shiny, sort of top of the food chain. Now we want to go back to kind of like basics. A lot of people that collect watches, Seiko is one of their first. And there's a lot of love and a lot of appreciation. We both love Grand Seiko. Seiko is kind of to thank for that. So we want to go on that side of the house, and hopefully it's a good contrast and comparison. So we're excited about that. And with that being said, follow us on social media at Strap and Link. And let us know what you think. Feel free to DM us, comment on stuff, and engage with us. So we love to see it.
And don't forget to use the discount code StrapandLink15 on Strap Habit. If it's still active. It should be still active. Yep.
Yes, still active. On Instagram at strap_habit, and then online at straphabit.com. Use code StrapandLink15 for leather, rubber bands, things like that for your watch. So just got a new one, orange one for my Black Bay. Very, very cool.
Yeah, definitely.
So, awesome.
All right. Well, I appreciate it, guys. Thank you for listening.